Welcome to the Joe Moglia Podcast, featuring Hall of Fame football coach and world-renowned business leader, Joe Moglia. Let's join the host of the Joe Moglia Podcast, Jamie King.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's time for the Joe Moglia Podcast. We got a lot to catch up on, and it's been a great summer so far, and we want to hear from the man himself. So without further ado, it is Joe time. Coach, welcome back. I know you've been traveling this summer. Tell us about some of your travels. Where you been? What have you been up to?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Jamie. I hope you're doing well, because I know you've been a little bit under the weather. So all our prayers are with you, by the way, as far as it goes. I've been in New York, and I spent a little time in Minnesota. I spent some time in Naples, and I've not been here in Myrtle Beach as often as I'd like, but I want to be able to spend a little bit more time here now. We have a family vacation coming up that we do every other year. That starts this Friday in Sea Island, Georgia, which the vacation is something we always look forward to. It may be a little hot this time of year for that, but we'll be ready to go. We'll enjoy it.
So in Georgia, anything on the docket as far as what you all will do together? Is there one thing you always do, or is it anything special?
Well, we always have our meals together. Like if depending on where we are, what part of the country, we would go on hikes together, or the guys will play some golf. There'll be a fishing expedition. We're going to go bowling one day. And usually my daughter Kelly kind of sets everything up. And she does it in a way where there's usually something we're doing as a family every day. But then there's plenty of free time for people to kind of do what they want to do, because there'll be over 30 of us.
Okay, that'll be fantastic. And I love those things you guys do together. You have so much fun, enjoy yourself, and I hope you guys have another great trip. It sounds like a real fun one. We want to turn the page, Coach. Since we last talked, we've had the 250th celebration of the country. How did you celebrate with your family for the big 4th of July and the big birthday for America?
I was honored. I was on the Maria Bartiromo show, and she did a special on Fox Business, or Fox, for the 250th anniversary of what's going on in the markets, et cetera. And so you go all the way back to the American Revolution, and you think of where we are today and the different things we've actually come through. And because of the 250th birthday, there are a lot of great documentaries that are out there right now about the founding fathers and what they've done and what they had to go through. But you think about literally not just the revolution, American Revolution. We were fighting the number one global power period, and we were able to get through that. And then we were dominantly a trading or an agrarian society, and from there we had the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. In the 1800s, we also had the Civil War. We got through that. We had the Franklin founded electricity. We had the advent of the automobile. As you turn the century, the advent of the airplane. You have World War I. You have World War II. You have at the end of World War II, you have the discovery of the computer, the impact that had. And every one of these are major transitions, by the way, as far as the world goes and our country goes. From there, we had the internet in the 1990s. That certainly changed what's going on in the world. We had the advent of the mobile telephone and wireless. Then you had 9/11 in the middle of that. And now today we've got AI and so many different things got on it. By the way, the financial system has been there the entire way to be able to help fund or help reward the entrepreneurs that have been involved with that. When you think about where we came as a country over the span of the last 250 years, it's really pretty extraordinary.
I'm going to tell you something now, and I'll get credit for it if it happens. It is successful, of course. Sure. But, Kevin Costner does some of those, Western type themed events where he's out there in the Wild West. And then you've got Kelsey Grammer doing some of the Patriot type thing. What if you approached Maria and asked her if Fox would allow you to maybe take a look at the history of finances and going back through and maybe through New York where you grew up and go through the whole, litany of everything? I'm just telling you, I think it would be a great segment and something Fox could really do well with, or any of the business channels. So there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I think number one, that would be a very, very intense job. Number one, I'm not sure I want to take that on.
Okay.
But I think it's a great idea. But, it's a great idea. I think there's somebody out there that might be very interested in doing that. And you would think you would think the financial networks would have that in the back of their mind. So there may be somebody else working on that right now. And if it happens, I'll say they heard it on this show.
There you go. There you go. Spain wins the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Coach, I just have to say this. I've never been a soccer guy, and it drives me crazy to run around for 2 to 3 hours and 0-0 on the pitch. Don't get me wrong, the guys that play it and the people that play it, they love it. And I have friends tell me all the time, oh, it's so amazing. His chess, his checkers, it's all this exciting. Great. I like 4 plays, either get a first down, punt, move forward, get in the end zone. That's me as an old football coach, okay? But I got to tell you this. I caught the fever. I watch these games, Coach, and the billions of dollars made throughout the e-commerce and the commerce of our country, and the way it was put on. And I saw Kash Patel, the FBI director, talking about zero crimes in all the 78, I believe it was, games that were played or more. It was so spectacular every game, and to see these other countries coming to our country that sometimes the media can portray us in a negative light, and don't get me wrong, sometimes it's justified. But for them to come over here and visit and see what we have and say, man, this is a beautiful place to be, as we know it is. What was your take on the entirety of the World Cup?
Well, I think number one, I think the World Cup goes above and beyond just soccer, right? And there are a lot of people in the United States that may or may not love soccer as an individual sport. A lot of people play that. We understand that. We appreciate that. I mean, you got to be a good athlete to be good at it. But I think the World Cup takes on a significance totally of its own. So you've got all these different countries that have a team that never, in general, would be able to compete on a global stage against other major powers in the world. It's we are not even at the top of that list as far as that goes, but we are the United States of America, and I think for all those teams rather to be able to play over here is very, very special. So you've got such a patriotic pride, right, that the Argentinas of every individual country would have when you get a chance to go against another country. You're not playing another team in your league. You're playing against another country, and they're very, very, very best players for what's the equivalent of the World Cup, and it only happens every 4 years. Right. So it's a great tournament is not the right word for it. It's far more significant than that. It's the World Cup. It's the World Cup, and you've got every country in the world that's able to really participate in it. And for that to be able to happen in the United States, and the fact that I wasn't aware of this, the fact that there were no crimes taking place in our country during these actual events, you're pretty significant. That you don't want to announce that, make that too big a deal, because 4 years from now, the thieves will know that that's a good time to go out and rob somebody.
Well, yeah. He said they stopped thousands of drones, things like that. But the one thing that he said, which really kind of stuck with me, was Kash Patel, the leader of the FBI, when he said, you have to imagine this is like having 70 some Super Bowls. This is not just one. This is all these people you have to protect over this length of time, and to do it without one major occurrence is pretty spectacular, and job well done. Well done.
It's a major, major security challenge. And, again, credit to our country and the people that needed to do that.
Did anybody stand out to you? Of course, you see the Messis and the Mbappes and the Harlans and all the different countrymen and so forth. Was there one person you kind of locked in and said, wow, about, or somebody really stood out to you?
Well, I think the wow was the Messi, because he's the Michael Jordan of golf, of soccer rather. He's the Tiger Woods of golf, and it was going to be his last game, right? So I think there's something like that. The buzz and the enchantment around that was really, really pretty significant. I mean, you got some really, really great, whether or not you love the game itself, the athletes that play the game are really incredible athletes, and they work hard and they're in great shape, and they go after it. And it's physical, and they go after it.
Yeah, and this Messi guy, I watched him, and I just shook my head in disbelief. A little guy like that doing all the things he did. his countrymen and around the world. He's beloved. He's just amazing. I did want to ask you, the UK is now has its seventh prime minister in 10 years. Andy Burnham is up next. Britain in a political free fall. Prime Minister Keir Starmer resigned last month. It's a mess. Is Burnham a guy you think can turn it around or give him some stability? Your thoughts on this new addition to, of course, as prime minister for the first time, seventh prime minister in 10 years. They are looking for a change.
Yeah, I don't know the skill sets of the individuals that are involved with that enough to be able to have an opinion of whether it gets turned around. But clearly, the Prime Minister of Great Britain is a pretty critical role, and to have seven prime ministers in 10 years says something is clearly absolutely wrong. And just like today, Congress, one side of the aisle is not necessarily doing what they believe is the best interest of our country. They're doing everything they can to prevent the other side of the aisle from getting elected or reelected. That's, I think, a little bit what takes place in Parliament, that everybody's kind of going after everybody else and not able to get anything done. I think Parliament's got to be able to step up, just like I think our Congress got to be able to step up and pull together. And at the end of the day, we don't want to continue to go down the path we're going down. Great Britain can't continue to go down the path they're going down. So the leadership, it's not just the prime minister, it's not just the president. The leadership within the country's got to be able to pull together and say, we got to get this right. We got to get this right. How are we going to be able to do that? Is our current system not working right? If it's not, then we got to fix it, we got to adjust it. But you begin with an attitude that we're all going to pull together to figure it out.
I was going to ask you, moving on to more world events, Ukraine has fired its top general. President Zelensky fired General Sirsky as commander-in-chief of their armed forces. Coach, what is happening? I mean, it just seems like the song remains the same. They keep battling for, of course, Russia wants Ukraine's land. They're not giving in. Nobody's giving in. I talked to a woman today that her husband was injured in the war, and now he's moved to IT over there. Her husband, of course, they're separated. She has her family, two kids here, and he's there. And I said, I feel so bad for you. And it really dawned on me how hurtful, the pain in her face about the fact her husband's there and she can do nothing about it. She said, they won't release anybody to leave until this war is done. You've been pulled into it and you can't leave. And now I thought about the families affected, and here she is right in front of me. And it really kind of hit me like, man, why? We're not getting anywhere. Neither side is budging, and it doesn't look like they will, and more lives will be lost. Your thoughts, will this see an end anytime soon?
Well, I think that there's a valid comparison to what we have going on now with the Middle East. That you go back 3 years ago or whenever the war started, and I think the entire planet anticipated that Russia is going to get this figured out immediately. But the Ukrainians weren't giving up on this, and it's become a battle that has gone on and on and on and on. And a lot of people have lost a tremendous amount of lives and kind of wonder why Russia hasn't been able to kind of wrap it up. So maybe Russia doesn't have quite the military power they thought they had. And the Ukrainians have obviously a desire to be able to make sure that they keep their independence. I think you look at what's taken place with us now in the Iranian crisis. When we first got involved with that, was 3 or 4 months ago. When you heard the president talk, we thought kind of everybody's already going to wrap up in a week or two. Well, now it's about 100 days or more than that into it, and it's not wrapped up yet. And we thought a few weeks ago we had this, we had an agreement and we're going to wrap it up in 60 days. That hasn't happened. So these things can kind of go on a long, long, long time. And, you do have people that are willing to die for what they believe in. Right. And I think that's certainly true for the Ukrainians. And it's certainly true, I think, for the people, not all the people in Iran, but the radicals in Iran that, hate the West, that hate so much of the rest of the world. They're not willing to give in on any of this. Now, at some point, we'll come to an end. I think we'll hope so. I think we pray that's going to happen. I think, at the end of each show, you always ask me, say, what is it you want to leave everybody with? I'd like to leave everybody with that, like right now, and I'll give you that answer later on. But
okay.
It's been going on now for approaching 4 months. We thought it'd be over within 10 days.
Coach, that's my next question. To me, we're not a political show. We never have been. We've had some comments, but we're not political. We keep it for everybody, which we've always tried to do. But I want whoever's the president to be successful. I want America to be successful, and I want all
Yeah.
of our military to come home safely. That's my number one thing. But when I see that we just had 3 American service members killed, God bless them and their families and thank them for the service. Heartbreaking there to see that happening. Ceasefires broken down. Now there's a 60-day roadmap to a deal, and the question is, can it hold? When the president comes out and says, "Well, they have no more this and they have no more that," and no, and I know he's depleted so much of their arsenals, but to say they don't have this and they practically obliterated, and and then all of a sudden we find 3 service members killed, more attack type things happening there, and I know they've got rogue bombs and things hidden, but saying these things, do we finish the job and just end this? Because now they're talking about going into areas of civilian populations, so that's a mess. And then there's a situation of ground troops, which would be a bigger mess. Uh, what happens here? I mean, every time I think I've got a handle on it and think we've got this, or it's going to be ending, but these guys, as you mentioned, and have always talked about, they're not giving up. They rather, you know, drive a stake in the ground and say, "Hey, this is it. We're gonna, no matter what, we're gonna fight to the death." And sometimes I don't think people realize their resolve about what they think of it. They're not like us. They don't value what we value. They think martyrdom is like that's it, man. So if we lose everybody, hey, it's great. Whereas we look at and value life. So how do you see this ultimately unfolding?
I think at the end of the day, we have to get information that's not contradictory. So we hear something that, for example, when the announcement was made that everything's going to come to an end, we got 60 days to be able to figure this out. Well, that very Monday, I mean, 2 days later, there was bombings taking place. We said we in Israel were on the same page, and Israel said we haven't agreed to that, and they were doing what they needed to do. So there was supposed to be the Strait of Hormuz was supposed to be kind of cleaned up. Well, that didn't happen. So I think you think about maybe, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to maybe make the comparison, but I'll take a shot at it anyway. The Ukrainians were always part of Russia, and they value their independence, and they don't want Russia to take them back over again, and they don't want Russia to invade their independence. That's it. They're part of Russia. With regard to the radical groups in the Middle East, the radical group, the radicals, what we know as the terrorist world today, they hate the West. They hate our country. They hate the people in our country. So there's a bitter hatred with regard to that against us. They were never part of the United States. They're never going to be part of the United States. They don't want to be part of the United States. And if they can do anything to hurt us, they're going to do that. So right now, at least, we all hope there's going to be an end in sight.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's what the Ukrainians and Russians thought 3 or 4 years ago. And that's certainly what we thought 4 months ago. But now I don't necessarily see an end tomorrow.
And then if you go to the ground, then you're talking about a really extended deal. And that is something we all hope doesn't happen because, like I say, I just don't. The proclamations of 1 more week or we're almost done. And as you said, Coach, so well just moments ago, we had a deal in place. And 2 days later, they're bombing again. So it's like what you say and what you do, 2 different things. And we really don't put any credence in anything because we're going to do what we want to do regardless of what you ask us. There is no, I think, respect from that side. And I just don't have any. I know I don't have any answers. I was hoping you might have some.
I don't have any answers. My mom always used to say, "Action speaks louder than words," and that's so very, very true. So let's pray that this all turns out okay. And that's my advice at the end of this show.
Okay. We've got new tariffs coming. U.S. Trade Rep says expect action soon. The U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer was on CNBC Squawk Box this morning and told the world to expect, quote, some action soon on new tariffs against dozens of countries. This coming right as Trump's 10% global baseline tariff is set to expire on July 24th. On Monday, Trump already hit Canada with a 50% tariff on most goods. Joe, every time the market thinks the tariffs have been figured out, something shifts, something changes, your thoughts on this entirety of the situation with tariffs?
It's almost, it's not as drastic, of course, as the actual wars that are going on, but it's still, we get miscommunication. So on one hand, we thought the tariffs were all taken care of. Eventually, we knew what was going to happen. Then we found out that wasn't going to happen. Then we kept going back and forth on things. And remember, I used to always say that president looks at himself as, the deal guy. And I could see him using the tariffs as a negotiating tool to be able to get what he wants. And I think he was successful in doing a reasonable amount of that. But then all of a sudden, the Supreme Court says, well, you don't have the ability to be able to do that. Well, now there's a whole question of people are going to get their money back. What's going to happen? None of this is easy. And now, what's going to happen next with tariffs? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows unless you're really truly on the inside. And no matter whatever Washington comes up with, there's going to be people complaining and moaning, groaning about that's not the right thing to do. So right now, I think that's still something that needs to be addressed, and we'll find out soon enough.
Coach, Brent crude is up above $89. So the energy pain is not over for Americans. Every time we think the pump prices are coming down, going back up. Your thoughts on barrels being up to 89 or more, energy stocks surging? What's your broader outlook on this? Because it just keeps going up, and every time we think there's some reprieve, it gets worse and goes back up again. Your thoughts? How long do you expect this volatility to go on?
We just spent some time, Jamie, talking about when is the war going to come to an end? Well, until the war comes to an end, we're going to have this volatility. And the real danger is not necessarily oil going between, $70 and $89, $98, but oil could potentially get to $125 a barrel. And if it stayed there for a longer period of time, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it might be, that would be a real problem. I mean, that could very much lead to a global recession. So the price of oil is going to be based on supply and demand. Supply and demand is very much not totally controlled by, but affected and influenced by what goes on in the Middle East. And you don't just have what's going on now in the Strait of Hormuz. You also have, Iran trying to make it difficult for Saudi Arabia, in terms of being able to their channel, their ability to be able to transport oil. So until the situation in the Middle East is resolved, the threat or the concern of oil going up is always going to be there. And the fact that it's going to go up and down just represents the volatility as we go back and forth.
You're watching the Joe Moglia podcast, of course, legendary Hall of Fame coach Joe Moglia, of course, world-class business leader as well. And that leads me to this question. This Q2 earnings and stocks, overall, everything is smoking hot. 88% of the S&P 500 companies have beaten their estimates, Coach. That's kind of the good news. Roughly 66 S&P 500 companies that have reported second quarter earnings so far. Nearly 88% have beaten the bottom line estimates. Where do we go in terms of everything seems like it's on an upswing as far as Q2 earnings? Do you think it's going to be a trend through the end of the year, or do you think it's just this quarter it was just hot? Any explanation?
Yeah, I think the fundamentals in the marketplace are really pretty good, Jamie. I think that most people should be invested for the longer term, but right now we've got a couple of significant things going on. The most significant one is the geopolitical stress we've got. Russia, Ukraine, people are not even paying attention to that anymore. So the issue going on with the Iranian crisis is certainly very, very, very real. The threat of the price of oil going crazy is very, very real. The other piece of this is that for a while we thought that the Fed's next step would be to ease, and now we don't know that's going to happen. Kevin Warsh, our new chair of the Fed, has made it very clear he's not going to tell us what they're going to do. They're going to really spend a lot of time looking clearly at the data, and at the end of the day, they'll make decisions that way. But the market thinks that the next step is going to increase rates. Well, if the market thinks that rates are going to increase because the Fed's going to increase them, and we have the threat of serious geopolitical crises with the price of oil staying really, really abnormally high for a long period of time, No, it's going to be tough for the market to really, really take off. So I think we've got to be able to get the world's got to learn what the Fed's thinking, and we got to solve our situation in the Middle East before,
3M,
prior to being comfortable.
we saw 3M, the company's up, I believe, 7% after topping their earnings expectations. When corporate America is delivering earnings this strong in the middle of a war, Coach, and I say sometimes numbers go up dramatically. I don't know the reasoning why. Maybe just the overall feel of people purchasing and the excitement. But in the middle of a war, in the middle of rising oil prices, tariff chaos, what does it say to you about the underlying, basically the resilience of the American people and our fight and resolve overall to respond in this manner?
In the beginning of the show, we talked about the history of our country, right? 250 years and what we've gone through to be able to get here. You think about, again, so many times in our country and the markets, like how we're going to recover from this. The reality is we've always recovered. And one of our great strengths is we never give up, and we're incredibly resilient, and we're going to go after it until we're able to figure it out. And I think one of our strengths is when things are not going well, we step up. We step up and we do what we believe is the right thing. And right now, things that potentially could be very, very, very good, but there are some major headwinds. This war, the Iranian crisis is one of those, and the Fed having to make a decision as to what they're going to do to control inflation and maintain, job stability and price stability. They're going to be a critical part of that, which we don't know yet.
Your thoughts on SpaceX below its IPO price, the first cracks in the AI tech boom. The price, $135 a share with short sellers. Did you expect it to kind of drop, or do you think it'll go back up? In terms of the AI tech boom, I don't see that as a major shift. It definitely is a shift, but do you think it's still going to trend up for most people out there that are looking to invest in AI?
They can invest in AI also by investing in the mega cap companies, the NVIDIAs of the world and the Googles of the world, et cetera. Looking at SpaceX, they're investing in AI, but also the whole potential, what's going to happen with regard to SpaceX exploration. And you're also investing in Elon Musk, right? So when the deal first came, I was offered stock when the deal first came, and I turned it down. And I would have taken it if I had the ability to be able to flip it. So the stock was priced at 135. If it ran to 160, 170, which it did, and I could sell out of that, I would have done that. But in order to get the stock, I would have had to commit to keeping it for a longer period of time. The SpaceX was trading at 100 times earnings, and the earnings were 100 times revenues. And the revenue, they don't hardly have any revenues yet. I mean, we don't know how to. Now, Anthropic's going to come along, OpenAI is coming along, but we don't yet know how to value these names yet because we've not had these names before. So we're trying to figure that out. Also, within a 6-month period, the real major holders of this, people that have owned SpaceX well before the IPO, 5-10 years ago, have a lockup period. At some point, they can sell a stock. If this company's $1.4 trillion today, they were probably investing in it when it was 150 billion, So the amount of money that they made on this would be really incredible. I think you're going to see some significant selling. So we decided to not do anything with the IPO, but if it came back to the IPO price, and we will look at that carefully then. And if not, at some point, 6 months from now, the selling will have taken place, and we'll look at it then. It's below the IPO price. We bought our first piece of SpaceX a week or so ago at 125, and we bought another piece on Friday at 115. These are small pieces because we're dollar cost averaging in.
I've had so many people through the years ask me, and we're going to ask you now, because there's a thought about you. I don't know, more myth than anything, but people want to know if it's true, if it's false, if it's real or not. They want to know, like with you in your daily walk, do you spend time in the morning or throughout the day where you're like day trading? Is that what you do? And they want to know, how much day trading does Joe do? And I'm like, well, we're going to ask Joe. So there you go.
I don't do any day trading, and my team doesn't do any day trading. We may put on a trade once in a while because we believe something may happen, but that's a trade. And if it goes against us, we'll take it off. And if it goes our way, then we'll take our profit and move on. But we do that very, very seldom. We invest in things that we believe are really smart, long-term investments from a fundamental perspective that will grow over a period of time. So we want to be able to own those for a longer period of time, and we'll do so as long as the reasons why we bought them continue to be there. If the reasons why we bought them go against that, we will sell, we will get out. Now, we do manage our risk though. So if we own something that does well over time, we don't just hold it forever. We will trim it. So we will take some of our profits off the table and move that to cash, so we have dry powder should something else take place. As long as the fundamentals are still there and the reasons why we wanted the stock to begin with are still there, if the stock gets hit, we will come in and buy, right? So, but we don't day trade.
No day trade. Okay.
No day trade.
As far as there are investors out there that are watching the show, I know we've talked AI stocks, different things. Where should they be looking at? What are you looking at? What could you give them in terms of any kind of tips?
Well, right now, I still believe that, the mega cap technology companies, the hyperscalers, are still very much going to be our future. They're great companies. The market's concerned because they're investing so much money into AI and data centers, et cetera. Well, you got to do that to be able to get what you need to be able to get 2-3 years from now. Now, a lot of people challenge that. You look at the CEOs that run those companies. I bet on those guys before I would bet on kind of the analyst community opining on whether or not they're spending too much money. Because frankly, if they think they're spending too much money, they make a mistake, they'll back off on it. But they got great businesses. And they'll probably borrow somebody to do that as well, or raise somebody to do it as well. But I think they know what they're doing. I think you got to be invested in that.
It's time now for our BAM question, and this is regarding Coastal Carolina. You're a tremendous asset and advisor to the Coastal Carolina president. BAM is woven into the fabric of Coastal Carolina. We know that. It's always been there. It's been a great program. It's done so much for the athletes and the people that go to school there, all the different people that have been affected. What is in terms of plans to make sure that, like the coach there now and the different teams, do you have an opportunity to get in there? We know you get to talk to teams, but do you try to touch like the softball team, the basketball team, the football, to try to spread as much BAM as you can? Or is it all, some people want to know, is it totally football, or do you get the opportunity to spread it to all different teams?
Well, I mean, I don't have any official responsibility for football. The moral responsibility is as executive advisor to the president. But the executive advisor to the president cares about a lot of different things going on campus, and we'll talk about a lot of different things. With my up until 2023, when we hired, after that season, when we hired Chance, I was still responsible for football. So it's clearly, I care deeply for what we've got going on there. I really like Ryan Beard. I'm a new head football coach. I have spent time with him. I've spoken to him, and I've spoken to his staff a little bit. I get involved with individual teams, frankly, if they ask me to. So I have met with the baseball. When Kevin Strong was here, I have met with the baseball team. Kevin invited me to be in the dugout with the team last year in the College World Series. I was honored to do that. I've spoken to the soccer team when Sean Dawkins was there. I've spoken to the basketball team with Justin Gray, our current head basketball coach. And our athletic director and I have become good friends, and I think the world of the guy. And he and I will spend time together. And he'll give me his thoughts in terms of what's going on. He doesn't need me to help him make those decisions, but I do have reasonable enough experience where it's not uncommon for me to be asked my thought process, or at least my opinion on something, which I'm always happy to share.
Coastal Carolina football right around the corner. You got a new head coach, and you've been as good as anybody in the nation. You've earned the Hall of Fame, so many Hall of Fames. We don't have time to mention them all. How's this guy going to do? How's this team going to do? Do you think they're going to be good this year? Very good, or do you think they're going to exceed expectations right now from your vantage point as they look now today? And it can change, we know that, but your expectations for the Chanticleers this year?
I think my expectation always try to be as realistic as possible. Remember, you've got a brand new staff with a brand new group of players, and pretty much that's going to be true for a lot of schools, especially at the group of 5 level and the FCS level, et cetera, that you can't control the guys you're necessarily going to keep. So you got a new staff coming in with a new bunch of players. You lose games because you make things you think you're making it easy, but most of the time coaches don't do that. I think Ryan really does understand that. And the ability to be able to simplify so you have 11 guys moving at once with no mistakes is going to be a key to being successful. I think another key will be, frankly, being aggressive, really taking special teams make it a real priority. I think you got to be able, can't be afraid. You got to know how, and you got to be able to block kicks. I think you got to be able to fake, and you've got to know how to execute those things. I think if he's able to keep it successful, and if he has some success doing some of those things in the kicking game, I love the way he approaches the program. I really like him and his attitude. He comes from the Bobby Petrino family tree. I like the staff. The players. When I watch them in certain practices, they seem like they're pretty good athletes to me, and they go after pretty well. Morale is certainly very, very high. So I'm optimistic that they're going to do well. Now, let's see what happens. He goes, we open up with West Virginia, September 3rd or September 4th or September 5th. That'll be a great test for us. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Can't wait for football. Before we leave the Joe Moglia podcast, no show is complete without getting the advice from Joe for the week ahead. Coach, you kind of tipped your hand earlier, so I guess you're going to head on back there. But what do you have for us this week in terms of your best advice?
I am going to go back there. I think it's a matter of when you think about the Russia-Ukrainian thing that we really don't pay too much attention to, but it's very, very real for people in Russia and Ukraine. Well, when that first started, everybody thought they'd be over within a month or 2 or 3. Well, it's 3 to 4 years now that's been going on. When we first went after the Iranians because of nuclear weapons, I applaud us doing that. I think that's the right thing to do. We can't allow them to have nuclear weapons, but we thought that'd wrap up in a little while. What hasn't? Well, now 3 to 4 months has gone on. I think it's kind of worth trying to be as objective as possible. And for those of you that have a strong belief system, it's worth our prayers. We don't want this to go on. We don't want this to be here a year from now. Nobody thought it'd be here 3 or 4 months ago today, but it is. And it could be here 3 or 4 months from now or 3 or 4 months from then. So we kind of do everything we can that the leaders on both sides of the world are able to figure it out and kind of come together and wrap this up and bring it to an end.
Folks, to learn more about the great Joe Moglia, go to Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. Coach, before we leave, any appearances coming up on CNBC?
Nope, nothing's on the schedule.
Okay, let us know. And, of course, we'll always post that on Moglia.com. Folks, to learn about one of America's great coaches and, of course, Hall of Fame many times over, and one of the world's greatest business leaders, go to Moglia.com. You got photos, you got information, great stories, and don't miss his Forbes articles. They are must read. And that is going to wrap up this edition. Coach, have a great week ahead. Thanks for joining us. And let's get this football thing going. Enough of this soccer, Coach. Football's coming. Here we go. I see you smile. You like that.
All the best, Jamie. All the best, everybody. Take care.
You got it. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Joe Moglia Podcast. Reminding you to learn more about Joe by going to the sensational Joe Moglia website at Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. When you visit the website, you'll be able to learn more about Joe's schedule of appearances on CNBC as well as other speaking and television appearances. You can also read all of Joe's incredible articles featured in Forbes magazine. For Hall of Fame coach Joe Moglia, producer-director Rob Matea, and Joe Moglia podcast host Jamie King,